I froze at the gate of what used to be my family's ranch. Through the morning dust, I saw a young man mucking out the stables, his back bent under the Texas sun. Something about the way he moved made my heart stop. When he turned, I recognized the scar above his left eyebrow, the one he got, falling off his bike when he was 7. It was Tyler, my grandson. But why was he dressed like a ranch hand? And why didn't anyone tell me he was here? The doctor had cleared me to travel just 3 days ago. 6 months of cancer treatment in Houston, and all I wanted was to come home to Willow Creek Ranch, the land my late husband and I had built over 40 years. My daughter Claire had been calling every week, her voice full of concern, insisting I focus on getting better while she handled everything. I'd signed the power of attorney papers she'd sent, trusting her to manage the ranch, pay the bills, keep things running. Now, watching my 17-year-old grandson haul water buckets like hired help, I knew something was terribly wrong. I parked my truck by the main house and walked toward the stables. Tyler saw me and dropped the bucket. Water splashed across his worn boots I recognized as the ones my husband used to wear. The boy's face went pale, then red. Then he looked around frantically, as if checking whether anyone had seen me. "Grandma?" His voice cracked. "You're not supposed to be here yet. Mom said you weren't coming home until next month." "I got better faster than expected," I said, studying his face. He was thinner than I remembered, with dark circles under his eyes. His clothes were filthy, and there was a fresh bruise on his forearm. "Tyler, what's going on? Why are you dressed like this? Where's your mother?" He opened his mouth, but before he could answer, I heard footsteps behind me. I turned to see Claire striding out of the main house, my son-in-law, Derek, beside her. My daughter looked different. Her hair was perfectly styled. She wore expensive riding clothes I'd never seen before, and there was something hard in her eyes that hadn't been there 6 months ago. "Mom." Claire's smile was too bright, too practiced. "What a wonderful surprise. We weren't expecting you until you'd hidden whatever this is?" I gestured at Tyler, who was now staring at the ground. "Why is my grandson doing manual labor? Where's his father? Where's Rebecca?" Rebecca was Tyler's mother, my younger daughter. She'd moved to Willow Creek 2 years ago with Tyler after her divorce, and I'd given them the foreman's cottage to live in. They were supposed to be here, safe, while I was in Houston fighting for my life. Claire exchanged a glance with Derek. "Mom, let's go inside. We need to talk." "We can talk right here." Derek stepped forward. He was a large man, a real estate developer from Dallas who'd always made me uncomfortable. "Mrs. Patterson, there have been some changes while you were gone. Legal changes, for the ranch's financial stability." "What kind of changes?" Claire's voice took on a patient, condescending tone. "Mom, you signed power of attorney, remember? We had to make some difficult decisions. The ranch was losing money. We had to restructure. That doesn't explain why Tyler is dressed like I stopped, as Tyler pulled off his dirty cap, and I saw it. Across the back of his shirt, in faded letters, Riverside Ranch Crew. "You're making him work for you?" The realization hit me like a physical blow. He's 17 years old. He should be in school. "He works for room and board," Derek said matter-of-factly. "It's perfectly legal. We took him in when Rebecca couldn't care for him anymore." My blood ran cold. "What do you mean, couldn't care for him? Where's my daughter?" Claire sighed as if I were being difficult. "Mom, Rebecca had a breakdown. She's in a facility in El Paso. She signed custody of Tyler over to us 6 months ago. We're his legal guardians now." 6 months ago, right when I'd started chemotherapy. Right when I'd been at my most vulnerable. "And you decided the best thing for your nephew was to turn him into a ranch hand?" "We decided to teach him responsibility," Claire said coldly. "Besides, he helps with the operation. Derek and I are turning this place into a premier event venue, Riverside Ranch and Resort. We already have 5 weddings booked for next season." I looked at the house, my home, and saw it now. The new paint, the landscaping, the sign by the road that I'd been too shocked to process. Riverside Ranch, luxury events, and accommodations. "This is my ranch," I said quietly. Was your ranch, Derek corrected. You signed it over, Mrs. Patterson. For tax purposes and to protect your assets during your medical crisis. It was the smart thing to do. I signed a power of attorney, not a deed transfer. You signed several documents, Claire said. Do you remember? You were pretty out of it during chemo. I remembered signing papers. Claire had brought stacks of them to the hospital, explained they were for insurance, for medical decisions, for protecting the ranch. I'd been so sick, so tired, and I'd trusted my own daughter. I want to see those documents. They're with our attorney, Derek said smoothly. But Mom, why are we arguing? You're cancer-free. That's wonderful news. We've prepared a lovely room for you in the guest house. You can rest, recover, and watch us take this place into the future. The guest house. They were putting me in the guest house of my own property. Tyler made a small sound, and I looked at him. He was crying silently, tears cutting tracks through the dust on his face. That's when I noticed something else, a bruise on his neck, partially hidden by his collar. Tyler, who hurt you? He's clumsy, Derek said quickly. Falls all the time doing ranch work. Boys that age are uncoordinated. But I saw the lie in Tyler's eyes and the warning in Derek's stance. My grandson was terrified. I'd like to speak with Tyler alone. He has work to do, Claire said. The horses need feeding, and we have clients arriving this afternoon for a venue tour. Tyler, get back to work. He's my grandson. And he's our ward, Derek interrupted, legally. Now, Mrs. Patterson, I suggest you go rest. You've had a long drive from Houston. We'll have dinner tonight and discuss everything properly. They were dismissing me. On my own land, I watched Claire and Derek walk back to the house, my house, while Tyler slowly picked up his bucket and returned to his chores. He wouldn't look at me. I saw the defeat in every line of his young body, and I knew this had been going on for months. 6 months. While I'd been fighting cancer, they'd been doing this to him. I went to my truck and sat there, trying to process what I'd just learned. Then I saw something that made my blood run colder. Through the window of what used to be the foreman's cottage, where Rebecca and Tyler had lived, I saw movement. Someone was in there. Someone small. I walked over and knocked. The door opened a crack, and an older woman I didn't recognize peered out. Can I help you? I'm Margaret Patterson. I own this property. Who are you? I'm Rosa. I work here. She had a kind face but looked nervous. I take care of the little one. What little one? Rosa hesitated, then looked over her shoulder. I probably shouldn't say. Mr. Derek doesn't like. Rosa, I own this ranch. What little one? She bit her lip, then made a decision. Come in. Quickly. I stepped inside the cottage, and that's when I heard it. A child's voice, humming tunelessly. Rosa led me to what used to be Tyler's bedroom. Inside, sitting on the floor, surrounded by toy cars arranged in perfect lines, was a little boy about 5 years old. He didn't look up when we entered. He just kept humming and moving his cars in precise patterns. Who is this? This is Jacob, Rosa whispered. Tyler's son. The room tilted. Tyler has a son? From his girlfriend in high school. The mother left when the baby was born. Rebecca was raising him while Tyler finished school. But then, Rosa's voice dropped even lower. When Mrs. Rebecca got sick and had to go away, Mr. Derek said they couldn't have Jacob in the main house. He said the boy was defective and would scare the wedding clients. So he put him here, with me, to watch him. I knelt down, trying to catch the child's eye. Jacob? Hi, sweetheart. I'm your great-grandmother. The boy didn't respond, just kept lining up his cars. He's autistic, Rosa said gently. He doesn't talk much, but he's a sweet boy. He just lives in his own world. Does Tyler see him? Every night after work. He sneaks in after Mr. Derek and Mrs. Claire go to bed. Sometimes I hear him crying in here with the boy. It breaks my heart. I stood up, fury building in my chest. Tyler was 17 years old, working like a slave on his own family's ranch, sneaking visits with his 5-year-old son, who was being hidden away like a shameful secret. And my daughter, my own daughter, was part of this. Rosa, can you keep Jacob safe for a few more days? I'll do my best. But Mrs. Patterson, be careful. Mr. Derek has a temper, and Mrs. Claire, she's changed. She's not the woman you think she is anymore. I left the cottage and drove into town. Willow Creek was small, but we had a good attorney, Bill Morrison, who'd handled my husband's estate when he passed. I walked into his office without an appointment. Margaret! Bill stood up from his desk, surprised. I heard you were sick. How are you? I'm fine, Bill. But I need to see every document I've signed in the last 6 months, especially anything involving my ranch. His expression changed. Margaret, I didn't handle those documents. Claire said you wanted to use a firm in Dallas. She brought me papers to witness, but what papers? He went to his file cabinet and pulled out a folder. Power of attorney, medical proxy. And, he hesitated, a deed transfer. You signed the ranch over to Claire and Derek 6 months ago. I witnessed your signature. I was heavily medicated, Bill. I don't remember signing any deed transfer. That's what I was worried about. He pulled out the document, and there was my signature, shaky, barely legible, nothing like my normal handwriting. This came through right after your first chemo treatment. Claire said you wanted to protect your assets, but I told her I thought we should wait until you were feeling better. She got quite angry with me. Is it legal? If you were mentally incompetent when you signed it, no. But proving that will be difficult. They have my witness signature, and I did see you sign it, even if you seemed confused. What about Tyler? Can they legally force him to work like that? Bill frowned. How do you mean? I told him everything I'd seen. The bruises, the ranch hand uniform, the hidden child. Bill's face grew darker with each detail. Margaret, if what you're saying is true, we're talking about labor exploitation of a minor, possible abuse, and child endangerment. Do you have proof? I have my eyes. I have Rosa's testimony. And I can get Tyler to talk. Then, we need to move carefully. If Derek and Claire suspect you're building a case, they might hurt Tyler or move Jacob somewhere you can't find him. We need evidence first, then we strike. I spent the next 3 days pretending to be the docile, recovering cancer patient they expected. I stayed in the guest house, appeared at dinners, smiled weakly while Claire talked about her plans to expand the resort. Derek brought investors through the property, showing off the stables, the event barn, the renovated main house. I watched them treat my ranch like their personal kingdom. But every night, I met with Tyler in the darkness behind the stables. The first night, he was terrified to talk, but I told him about Jacob, about Rosa, about how I knew everything. And slowly, the story came out. 6 months ago, right after I'd left for Houston, Rebecca had started having panic attacks. She'd never recovered from her divorce, and raising Tyler and Jacob alone had been overwhelming. Claire had suggested Rebecca go to a rest facility in El Paso, just for a few weeks. Rebecca had agreed, thinking it was a real medical facility. But it's not, Grandma, Tyler said, his voice breaking. I finally got a letter from her last month. She's in some kind of religious compound. They took her phone, they read her mail. She wrote that she wants to come home, but they told her she hasn't completed her spiritual healing yet. Aunt Claire sends them money every month to keep her there. They're holding your mother prisoner? Tyler nodded miserably. And they made me sign papers saying I was okay with Derek and Claire being my guardians. They said if I didn't, they'd put Jacob in foster care. Derek said autistic kids get abused in foster care. He said terrible things. I was so scared, Grandma. I signed everything. What about school? Derek said I'm being homeschooled, but there's no school. I just work. 14 hours a day, sometimes more. If I complain, Tyler pulled down his collar, showing more bruises. He hits me. Not where people can see, usually, and he says if I tell anyone, Jacob disappears. My hands were shaking with rage. And the ranch work? They don't pay you? Room and board, they said. But I sleep in the equipment shed, Grandma. There's no heat. I eat after they're done, whatever's left over. And I can only see Jacob for 1 hour at night. Derek put a lock on Rosa's cottage. He has the only key. He gives it to me from 9 to 10 at night. Then I have to give it back. Does Jacob know you're his father? Tyler's face crumpled. He barely knows I exist. He can't connect with people the way others do. Sometimes I read to him, and I think he likes it. But I'm losing him, Grandma. I'm watching my son grow up, and I can't really be his dad, and I can't save him from this. I'm only 17. I have no money, no rights, nothing. Over those 3 nights, I gathered Tyler's testimony on my phone. I took photos of his bruises, the equipment shed where he slept, the locked cottage. I recorded the way Derek spoke to him during the day, the constant demeaning comments, the threats disguised as jokes. And I started to understand what had happened. Derek saw opportunity in my cancer. He'd been wanting to get into the resort business, but he needed capital and land. My ranch was perfect. With me sick and vulnerable, and with Claire's help, he'd systematically taken everything. The ranch, Rebecca's freedom, Tyler's childhood, Jacob's chance at a normal life. On the 4th day, Bill called me. Margaret, I've got something. I contacted the facility where Rebecca is. It's called New Hope Spiritual Retreat. It's been investigated twice for holding people against their will. They use coercive tactics, take money from families, and basically imprison people under the guise of mental health treatment. If Claire is paying them, she's complicit in false imprisonment. Can we get Rebecca out? I've already filed paperwork. But Margaret, there's more. I did some digging into Derek's finances. The ranch is mortgaged to the hilt. He's borrowed against it 3 times in 6 months. He's got gambling debts in Dallas. This whole resort thing? It's a shell game. He's using your property to secure loans he has no intention of paying back. When it all collapses, you'll be left with nothing but debt. That night, I called my old friend, Samuel Okoye. Samuel was a journalist for the Austin newspaper, and he owed me a favor. I'd helped his daughter get into college 15 years ago when no one else believed in her. Margaret Patterson, he said warmly. I heard you were sick. Are you okay? I'm fine, Samuel. But I need your help with a story. How would you like to expose a corrupt land grab, child labor, and a fake mental health facility that imprisons women? There was a pause. I'm listening. I told him everything. He arrived in Willow Creek the next day with a photographer and a videographer. The plan was simple. Derek and Claire were hosting a big event that Saturday, a grand opening for Riverside Ranch Resort. They'd invited investors, potential clients, local politicians, and the media. They wanted publicity. I was going to give them publicity they'd never forget. Saturday morning, I helped Tyler and Jacob escape. Rosa drove them to Bill Morrison's office, where they'd be safe. Then I got dressed in my finest outfit, the one I'd worn to my husband's funeral, and walked into the main house. Claire was in the kitchen, directing caterers. She looked startled to see me. Mom? What are you doing? The event starts in 2 hours. You should rest. I'm not resting anymore, I said. I'm taking my ranch back. Derek appeared in the doorway. Mrs. Patterson, you're confused. This isn't your ranch anymore. We've been over this. Actually, Derek, I spoke with my attorney. That deed transfer is invalid. I was under extreme duress and medicated when I signed it. Bill Morrison will testify to that. And even if it were valid, you've mortgaged my property illegally, which violates the terms of the transfer. His face darkened. You don't know what you're talking about. I also know about Rebecca, about the facility you're keeping her in, about the money Claire pays them monthly. That's false imprisonment, Derek. It's a felony. Claire went pale. Mom, it's not like that. Rebecca needed help. Rebecca needed support, not to be locked away so you could steal her son. Speaking of Tyler, where is he right now? I haven't seen him today. He's working, Derek said coldly. Not that it's any of your business. He's our responsibility now. Except he's not here. Neither is Jacob. They're somewhere safe, away from you. And they're ready to tell their story. Derek took a step toward me, and I saw the violence in his eyes. But I also saw Claire's phone recording on the counter. I'd set it to record before walking in. Every word, every threat, captured. The event started at noon. Guests arrived in expensive cars, women in sundresses, and men in summer suits. Derek and Claire played the perfect hosts, showing off the property. I stayed in the background, waiting. Samuel Okoye arrived with his team at 1 o'clock, dressed like regular guests. They mingled, setting up discreetly. At 2 o'clock, Derek stood on the main house porch to give his speech. He thanked everyone for coming, talked about his vision for Riverside Ranch, how he and Claire had transformed this struggling property into something special. That's when I walked up the steps and took the microphone from his hand. "Thank you all for coming," I said clearly. "I'm Margaret Patterson, and I actually own this ranch. Or I did, until my daughter and son-in-law systematically stole it from me while I was undergoing cancer treatment." The crowd went silent. Derek tried to grab the microphone back, but Samuel's photographer was already filming, and Derek's PR instincts kicked in. He couldn't physically assault an elderly woman in front of 50 witnesses and cameras. "I want to tell you a story," I continued, "about what really happened to create Riverside Ranch Resort. 6 months ago, I was diagnosed with stage 3 breast cancer. I was frightened and vulnerable. My daughter Claire convinced me to sign papers, she said, were for my protection. But those papers transferred my property to her husband, a man with massive gambling debts, who saw my ranch as his golden ticket. People were pulling out their phones now, recording. While I was in Houston fighting for my life, they took everything. They imprisoned my younger daughter Rebecca in a fake mental health facility against her will. They took custody of my 17-year-old grandson Tyler and forced him to work on this ranch 14 hours a day, unpaid. When he complained, they beat him. I pulled out my phone and showed the photos of Tyler's bruises on the screen behind me. Several people in the crowd gasped. And when Tyler's 5-year-old son Jacob, a beautiful boy with autism, proved to be an inconvenience, they hid him away in a locked cottage with a hired caretaker. Because Derek didn't want autistic children scaring away the wedding clients. Claire was crying now, but they were angry tears. "Mom, you don't understand." "I understand perfectly, Claire. You sold your soul for this." I gestured at the ranch. "You sold your sister's freedom, your nephew's childhood, and your mother's legacy. And for what? A resort that's mortgaged 3 times over? A business built on theft and child abuse?" Samuel stepped forward, identifying himself as press. "Mr. Bradshaw, do you deny these allegations?" Derek's face was red with rage. "This woman is senile. She's making things up because she's angry about perfectly legal business decisions." "Then you won't mind if we interview Tyler Patterson?" Samuel gestured. And Bill Morrison appeared with Tyler. My grandson stood there in clean clothes I'd bought him that morning, looking terrified but determined. "Tell them," I said gently. And Tyler did. He told them about the beatings, the shed, the locked cottage. He showed his bruises. He described watching through a window as his son grew up without him. Then Rosa appeared with Jacob. The little boy was overwhelmed by the crowd and clung to Rosa's leg, but his presence was proof. Here was the child Derek and Claire had hidden away. The crowd's mood shifted. People started leaving, some looking disgusted, others stopping to tell me they'd be calling the authorities. The potential investors hurried to their cars. The politicians wanted nothing to do with the scandal brewing. Derek lunged at me then. He actually grabbed my arm hard enough to leave marks, snarling about how I'd ruined everything. But Samuel's team caught it on camera, and 2 of the male guests pulled Derek away. The police arrived 20 minutes later. Bill had called them before the event started. They arrested Derek for assault on me, child abuse for Tyler's situation, and child endangerment for Jacob's conditions. Claire was taken in for questioning about Rebecca's imprisonment. By evening, the grand opening of Riverside Ranch Resort was the lead story on every local news channel, but not the story Derek and Claire had envisioned. By the next morning, Samuel's article went viral. The headline: Texas couple allegedly stole cancer patient's ranch, abused grandson, hid autistic great-grandson. The legal battles took 4 months. But Bill was right, the deed transfer was invalid. A judge ruled I'd been coerced and incompetent when signing. The ranch came back to me. Rebecca was released from the facility and came home, furious and determined to rebuild her life. Tyler started back to school, working toward his diploma. And Jacob? We got him into a wonderful program for autistic children, where he's thriving. Claire took a plea deal, 3 years probation, mandatory counseling, and permanent restraining orders from Tyler and Jacob. Derek wasn't so lucky. The combination of charges meant he faced prison time. He got 7 years. Last week, exactly 1 year after I first came home from Houston and saw Tyler in those stables, we held a different kind of event at the ranch. Not a grand opening for a resort, a welcome home party for Rebecca, and a celebration for Tyler's high school graduation. He'll be starting community college in the fall, studying education. He wants to work with special needs children because of Jacob, he says. Jacob was there too, playing with his toy cars in the shade while Rosa watched him fondly. The boy still doesn't talk much, but last month he looked directly at Tyler and said, "Dada." Tyler cried for an hour. I've decided to keep the ranch in my name until I die. No more transfers, no more trust. But I've had new papers drawn up. When I'm gone, it goes to Tyler and Jacob, with Rebecca as trustee, until Jacob turns 18. Let them build something real here. Something honest. Claire sends letters sometimes. I don't open them. Some betrayals cut too deep to heal. And I've learned that blood doesn't always mean family. Family is Tyler working 3 jobs while going to school so he can support Jacob. Family is Rebecca rebuilding her life, attending support groups, learning to trust again. Family is Rosa, who refused payment for taking care of Jacob but now lives in the foreman's cottage rent-free and considers herself Jacob's grandmother too. On my good days, I walk the ranch and think about my husband. He built this place with his hands, and he'd be proud that it's still standing. Not as a fancy resort, but as a home, a real home where broken things can heal and hidden people can finally be seen. Jacob is starting to hum different tunes now, not just the same repetitive sounds. His therapist says he's making remarkable progress. Sometimes I catch him watching Tyler with something like recognition in his eyes. It's slow, this healing, but it's happening. And that's worth more than any resort could ever be.